So this is what being an introvert is probably like, and this is speaking from someone who is quite an introvert in a lot of the situations. So I'm going to share my perspective, my view on everything, life with friends, social relationships, etc. So there are a few misconceptions out there about introverts, and it's that first of all, introverts are not weird at all. In fact, they actually make up part of the population of humans. And second of all, if someone is an introvert, it doesn't mean like they don't like to talk. And it also doesn't mean that they are not good at talking. Because some of the introverts out there are actually quite good talkers out there. They're good at giving speeches. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the best out there, but I know some introverts that have very superb communication skills and public speaking skills. And so there's one thing that will distinguish introverts from extroverts. So what differentiates introverts from extroverts? So first of all is our reserved nature. We don't like to talk like a lot. We don't like to say unnecessary things. We only talk when we feel like it's needed, or it's something important, or we just talk to a selected few individuals, maybe our friends. We don't necessarily talk to a lot of people. And for introverts, we tend to just prefer talking to a specific or smaller group of individuals. We don't really like to speak up a lot during like large gatherings or large meetings or reunions. That is not really our preference. We just prefer to talk in smaller groups. That's it. Like for me, I prefer to just voice out my opinions or just have fun around with like 2 or 3 people. That is what I prefer. But when it gets to like 10 people, then I'll just be more reserved. That's it. I mean, I'll still add some input into the conversation, but it's just not as much as when there are 2 or 3 people which I'm really familiar with or who I'm like very close with. Than those, yes, of course I will have more input. And I just, as an introvert, value more quality relationships and time with other people. And so I want to make my conversations as meaningful as possible, if can. And as introverts, I tend to listen more. This is just a fact. I don't really like talking a lot. I guess I am not really sure about all the introverts out there, but personally, I don't really talk that much. I let the other person speak first, and I think for most introverts, we just tend to listen first. And for me personally, I just listen to what the other side has to say, or my friend, or a family member, and from there I'll give help or advice, or maybe I'll add some input in there to the conversation. I always listen to what the other person says first, because I don't really like talking a lot over people. I don't really like to just get into a conversation and just constantly speak non-stop. I really want to listen to what other people's thoughts are, their feelings. And one thing about introverts is that I remember during school, I tend to sometimes prefer to be alone. And that's just me, but I think there are also introverts who prefer to be alone. And I understand, because sometimes as introverts, we just love to be alone. We just love to be with ourselves, But it doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean just cutting off like every single social conversation there is. It's just that sometimes we prefer to be alone. That's just it. It just gives us a better sense of clarity. It's like a refreshment to us. So for extroverts, it's really hard to understand this feeling, because extroverts, they want to be in social conversations. But for introverts, sometimes we tend to know how to pull ourselves back from conversations or social situations, and just because during this time of being alone, it offers us time to really reflect on ourselves, to really work on ourselves, to strengthen the clarity of our mind. So this is for my purpose of why I prefer to be alone sometimes, is to cut out the distraction and the noise, and so I can really focus on my work, or it's just offering me time for some deep reflective thinking. And yeah, maybe some introverts, they might be alone for, of course, different purposes. I know for extroverts, it's very hard for them to endure this, like just being alone. But for introverts, it's a really refreshing time. It's like for your mind to be in a state where it's fully working on your own. I can finally think what I want, I can do what I want, and this alone time is like one of the times that introverts need, because it's like seeking respite and a kind of break from everything. And also, as an introvert, for me, I realized that I tend to observe things more. I tend to observe people's behaviors, because the thing is, sometimes I remember doing in school, like high school, I don't talk a lot at times in high school. And so I remember during high school period, there were moments where I liked to be alone, and during that time, I just loved to observe things more. I loved to observe my environment. I can hear different types of conversations, different voice tones. It's not only observation, but it's also hearing. I can see different people's behaviors. I can kind of catch the tone of the voice that which they are talking at. And at times, you just catch things happening just like that. Like you just observe things happening like in front of you, and you catch a lot of detail, like a lot of deep nuances that you never knew about, by just observing people, their behavior, the way they act, their conversation topics, and all of that. I've heard like countless gossips around different friend groups. I don't know how to put all of these in words, but it's just offering so many new perspectives for me. Like I get to know a lot of insights about human nature, about people's behaviors, their characters, all of these things that I observe and I hear. A last note: being an introvert is not weird at all. It's just your biological nature. It's what you're wired. It's what your brain has been wired to be like. It's your natural inclination. So I think instead of like distancing yourself away from your introversion, instead of trying so hard, forcing yourself to fit in groups, you should lean into that introversion. And it doesn't matter if you're introverts or extroverts. Most importantly is to always be yourself, is to be authentic, to accept yourself as the way you are. And I hope everybody has a great day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.